She didn't curse. She didn't resist. She simply adjusted the cuff of her navy sleeve and looked up calm, collected, but visibly erased. Celeste Morgan had earned her first-class seat months ago, paid for in full, window seat, seat 2A. But now a flight attendant leaned in close and said, in a voice dipped in practiced apology, "Ma'am, we'll need you to relocate to the back." No reason. No explanation. Just a stranger in slacks waiting to take her place because someone had decided, without question, that she didn't fit. And the worst part? Everyone around her was pretending it wasn't happening. Just one more quiet removal in plain sight until the whole plane stood up. She tucked her bag gently under the seat in front of her, smoothed her sweater, and sat back. The sun cut through the window at just the right angle, and for a moment she let herself breathe. She thought of Zuri's laugh, of her son ironing his shirt for the ceremony, of the years that had passed in the blink of an eye. A flight attendant came by, a younger woman with a tight ponytail and a tone that sounded more scripted than kind. "Water," she offered. She smiled politely. "Thank you." The attendant's voice lowered just slightly. "First time in first class?" She chuckled. "That obvious?" "Not at all," the attendant said. "You look great." It was a comment that didn't quite land, too practiced, too quick. Still, she nodded and turned back to the window. She wasn't here for anyone's approval. Then came the voice. "Excuse me, ma'am," said another attendant. Blonde. Unreadable expression. Slightly hunched, like she already expected pushback. "I'm really sorry, but there's been a seating issue. We need you to move to seat 19C. She blinked. "I'm sorry. There was a late upgrade and a mix-up with the system. That seat, 2A, was assigned in error. We'll need you to move to the back." For a moment, the plane around her faded. The sounds dulled. Her pulse didn't race, but something deep inside her stiffened. She reached calmly into her bag, pulled out her boarding pass, printed, crisp, clear. She held it up. "This is my seat. I chose it. I paid for it months ago." The attendant glanced at it, then looked over her shoulder. "I understand, but we really need to resolve this quickly before takeoff. If you could just cooperate." Across the aisle, a woman in a denim jacket put her magazine down quietly. "I saw her board first," she said. "That's her seat." She didn't move. Her fingers tightened on the armrests. Not with rage, but resolve. "I'm not trying to be difficult," she said, voice soft but steady. "I just know what I paid for. And this is it." The attendant leaned in closer now, eyes darting toward the front. "We'll compensate you. It's still a nice seat. Just for now, please." But then he appeared. Tall, white, mid-40s, business casual, laptop bag slung over his shoulder. He looked confused, slightly annoyed, and completely certain he didn't belong anywhere but that seat. 2A, right? He asked the attendant. "Yes, sir," she replied, forcing a smile. "Right this way." The man glanced at her but said nothing. Nothing. He didn't ask why. He didn't ask if there was a mistake. He just stood there, waiting. She stayed still. Her hands were shaking now, but barely. Her voice didn't crack. "Handled how?" she asked the attendant, her voice now sharper. "You want me to give up my seat to him?" The attendant's tone shifted, firm now, final. "Ma'am, please." And that was when it happened. The silence. Not silence like peace. Silence like shame. The rustle of safety belts. The thud of carry-ons. The slow, awkward turn of heads pretending not to watch. No one said anything. Not at first. She looked around. Everyone had eyes, but no one met hers. She felt her throat tighten, not from sadness, not even from humiliation, but from something older, familiar. The slow realization that even after everything, after the career, after the raising of children, after the fight to live with dignity, someone still looked at her and thought she didn't belong. And that this whole machine was ready to agree with them. She stood slowly, collected her bag. The flight attendant smiled like the problem had solved itself. "Thank you," she said. She didn't reply. She walked down the aisle alone, past rows of faces that didn't want to be part of it. Row 8. Row 12. Row 17. She reached 19C, near the bathroom, narrow, no sunlight. "The air staler here." She sat down, and only then did the plane start to notice. She didn't cry. She sat with her hands folded, just as she had in 2A. But the seat under her felt smaller now. The air heavier. The silence around her wasn't peace. It was the weight of being reminded yet again that knowing your worth didn't mean others would respect it. She stared out the tiny oval window, not seeing clouds or tarmac, just her reflection. Older. Wiser. Tired. Not from the years, but from moments like this. Moments that piled on top of each other until they whispered, "You don't matter as much as he does." Across the aisle, a teenager in headphones glanced over. Just a quick look. Curious. Confused. She gave a polite, tired smile. That used to be enough. But then, excuse me, the voice came from the front. Familiar. Clear. Firm. The woman in the denim jacket had stood up. Hi, she said, loud enough for everyone in the first few rows to hear. What just happened here doesn't sit right with me. Heads turned. She looked up, startled. The woman pointed toward 2A. That lady, she had her seat first. I saw her board. I saw her sit. I saw her hold a boarding pass with 2A printed on it. A flight attendant rushed over, her voice practiced and tight. I understand your concern, ma'am, but we're trying to keep things moving. No, the woman said, louder now. You moved her because you thought she wouldn't say anything. But I will. Passengers began to stir. Eyes no longer darted away. Phones tilted up. A red-haired teenager 2 rows back hit record. She was moved without cause, the woman continued. She was quiet, respectful, and you chose to make her invisible. The man in 2A shifted in his seat, suddenly less comfortable. I'm sorry, the woman pressed, but someone needs to explain how this happened. And if no one else will ask, I will. Silence again. But not the same kind. This silence had tension. This silence had energy. This silence had weight. From row 3, a new voice cut through. She's right. A man in a Detroit Tigers cap stood halfway up. Mid-40s. Gray in his beard. Strong voice. I watched it too. She sat before anyone else. They moved her without reason. And frankly, I'm not okay with that. The crew looked panicked. One attendant picked up the phone, likely calling the cockpit. Another tried to calm the man. We can address this once we're airborne. No, the woman said, crossing her arms. You address it now. Because that wasn't a mistake. That was a choice. You saw a quiet, older black woman and you thought you could get away with it. That last word landed hard. Black. There it was. Out loud. In the open. She felt it crawl up her spine. Her heart thumped slow and deep. She had lived a life of diplomacy, of teaching her students to rise above. But now someone else was rising for her. From the back, another voice spoke up. That ain't right. Then, louder, from somewhere in the middle. Give her the seat back. The man in 2A looked around, adjusting his tie. For the first time, he seemed unsure. He spoke, finally. Look, I didn't ask for this. I just sat where they told me. The denim woman didn't blink. And when you saw her being moved, you didn't ask one question. Not one. He looked down. Not my call. The Tigers cap man turned to her. Ma'am, he said gently, do you want your seat back? Her throat tightened. Her hands trembled. But her voice, when it came, was quiet steel. I don't want to hold up this flight, she said. You're not, the woman replied. You're the reason we might finally get it right. And just like that, people started standing. Row 4. Then 5. Then the couple behind them. If she doesn't get her seat, someone said, we're not sitting either. The crew froze. Someone hit the call button. She stood. Not with defiance. Not with pride. Just with a quiet, grounded dignity that said, I'm done shrinking. She walked slowly back down the aisle, past the rows of passengers now watching with something new in their eyes, respect. And as she returned to 2A, the man stepped out without a word. No apology. No glance. Just silence. She sat again. Same seat. Different posture. And somewhere in the back, the teenager hit upload. It was only a 23-second clip, but it was already traveling faster than the plane ever could. By the time the plane took off, she was back in her seat. 2A, window side. Hands folded neatly in her lap. But it didn't feel the same. Before, it had been about showing up. Now, it was about being seen. She didn't touch the complimentary drink. She didn't make small talk. She simply stared out the window, letting the clouds drift past like the noise behind her. She wasn't angry. Not in the loud, bitter way people expect. But she was thinking about her granddaughter Zuri, about the world she was graduating into, about the message she might carry with her after this. Behind her, the cabin had settled into something close to normal. Snack trays opened. Headphones clicked. Seatbelts stayed buckled. But the tension never fully left. People were quieter, more aware. They had seen something, and more importantly, they had felt it. Somewhere near row 18, the red-haired teenager finished editing his clip. Caption: They moved an elderly black woman out of her first-class seat. The whole plane said nope. He hit post. TikTok. 30 seconds. Then 50 likes. Then 500. Then 10,000. By the time the wheels touched down in San Jose, the clip had already passed 80,000 views and been stitched by 3 influencers. one airline watchdog account, and a travel blogger who added, "Her name is Celeste Morgan. Let's make sure the airline remembers it." She didn't know any of this. Her phone had been off. She was still smoothing her sweater and getting ready to text Zuri. "Landed safe. Can't wait to see you." As passengers filed out of the plane, some brushed her shoulder gently. A nod, a smile. One man leaned in and whispered, "You're a class act, ma'am. I'm glad they made it right." She nodded softly. She didn't know what to say. This wasn't the kind of attention she wanted. A part of her wished she could disappear into the crowd, catch the shuttle, make it to the hotel, pretend this never happened. But when she powered her phone on, it didn't stop buzzing. Missed calls, texts from her kids, her old coworkers, numbers she didn't even recognize. 3 missed calls from her son, Andre. She answered on the 4th ring. "Mama." His voice was breathless, shaken. "Are you okay? Are you really okay?" "I'm fine, baby," she said, puzzled. "Why? You're all over the internet. Everywhere. Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. That video of you standing your ground, it's viral. You didn't even raise your voice, and you still made the whole plane listen. Mama, I'm so proud of you." She closed her eyes. She hadn't even realized anyone had been recording. "I wasn't trying to make a scene," she said. "I was just trying to get to Zuri's graduation." "I know," he said, "but that's what makes it powerful. You didn't do anything but stand your ground, and people saw that. They felt that." She sat quietly in the shuttle as it rolled away from the curb. A soft buzz still hummed in her purse. More messages pouring in. Her name had become a headline, a symbol. She hadn't asked for this. She hadn't wanted it. But maybe it was time. She had spent her life teaching others to find their voice. Maybe now it was her turn to use hers. By the time she reached her hotel in San Jose, her name was already making the rounds on news tickers and press emails. Not officially, of course. The airline Starglide Air had yet to mention her directly. No names. No specifics. Just a cold, polished statement posted to their social media. "We are aware of the incident on Flight 482 involving a seating assignment confusion. Starglide Air remains committed to fairness and inclusion for all passengers and is currently reviewing internal procedures. We apologize for any inconvenience caused." There it was again, inconvenience. She read the word twice, then whispered it aloud like something sour on her tongue. That's what they called it. Not humiliation. Not disrespect. Not the sting of being pushed aside again. She thought about all the apology letters she'd written in her career when a student was mistreated, when a parent felt unheard. She never used words like inconvenience. When it mattered, she used truth, clarity, accountability. That night, as the hotel television played the now viral video on loop, she picked up a pen. Not a phone. Not a keyboard. A pen. She wrote slowly, carefully, every word weighed. "I wasn't trying to go viral. I was trying to visit my granddaughter." She wrote about dignity. About what it feels like to be quietly erased. About how often older people, especially older Black women, are expected to step aside without protest. "I spent decades telling young people they mattered. That their presence mattered. That they belonged. I still believe that. But sometimes the people who forget aren't the students. They're the ones who think they're in charge." She gave the letter to her son, Andre, who posted it with her blessing. It spread faster than the video. Talk shows quoted her lines. Op-eds praised her grace. Civil rights organizations reposted it with hashtags. Hashtag Seat for Celeste. Hashtag Dignity Doesn't Move. But there was one comment, just one, that stuck with her. A woman named Danielle from Topeka wrote, "My mother was pushed out of a line at the bank once. She just laughed and said, 'People like us don't make noise.' I wish she'd lived to see this. Thank you, Miss Morgan. You reminded me to stop laughing things off." She read it twice, then folded her letter neatly and placed it in the drawer beside her bed. She wasn't looking for a spotlight. She wasn't chasing applause. She just refused to be small anymore. And yet, even with all that noise, all that movement, the moment that meant the most was still waiting. On a stage. At a graduation. Saturday morning came clear and bright. She didn't wear anything flashy. Just her favorite navy dress, the one she'd saved for something special, and the pearl earrings she'd worn the day she retired. Her hands were steady. Her steps sure. She wasn't thinking about hashtags or trending videos or weak apologies from polished suits. She was thinking about her granddaughter. The stadium was full. Families everywhere cheering, waving signs, holding back tears. She found her seat tucked near the middle just like everyone else. Until a security guard walked over. "Miss Morgan?" She looked up. "The dean asked me to walk you to a reserved seat." "Better view." "Reserved?" she asked. "For who?" He smiled. "For you." She followed him to the front, just behind the stage. A simple chair with a card folded on it. Guest of honor. Nothing flashy. Just real. And then they called her name. Zuri Denise Morgan. The first engineer in the family. The first to walk that stage. She stood not to be seen but because she couldn't help it. Zuri found her in the crowd. Their eyes met. And in that one look, she saw it all: pride, power, love, and the legacy of every woman before her, whoever sat in silence just to keep peace. After the ceremony, Zuri hugged her tight. "You made people talk," she whispered. She smiled. "I didn't try to." Zuri pulled back, eyes shining. "Maybe we don't always need to shout. But when we speak, people should listen. If you're still here, maybe you've seen someone like her. Maybe you've been her. So if this story moved you, share it. Not for the clicks. Not for the outrage. But because dignity should never have to be defended. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stay seated when the world expects you to stand down. Leave a comment. Tag someone who needs to hear this. And remember, your voice matters even when you whisper.